Hello, and welcome to the Commercially Savvy Lawyer. I'm Sonya Shaykhoun, Esquire, and I'm the Commercially Savvy Lawyer. Today I'm going to talk to you about two things in particular. Number one, picking your battles when negotiating contracts, and number two, the now therefore language. So far in the Commercially Savvy Lawyer series, I have spoken to you about how to make sure your contract is on track for success. And we've covered the top of the contract and the recitals and everything in between. But first, let's discuss picking your battles. When you have to work with lawyers from all over the world on transactions, as I have done while working for companies in the Middle East like Orbit Communications Company, Al Jazeera Media Network, and Qatar Airways in Doha, Qatar, you will come across lawyers with different levels of tolerance for modern language and varying aptitudes for common sense. It is important to pick your battles and save your energy for the really important points that are make or break. Try not to be petty or condescending. I'm a real stickler for being polite to counterparts because at the end of the day, the transaction may not end after the contract is signed, and it may be a collaborative effort where it's a service contract that will go on for months or years, so you need to get along. A perfect example of picking your battles also illustrates the now therefore language. Many years ago, when I was still a lawyer at Orbit in Bahrain, I was working on a relatively simple service contract with an American company whose lawyer had an American LLM, but who hailed from China originally. I know that because I checked his profile on LinkedIn. I wanted to know who I was dealing with. As I did my legal degree and training course in England around the time of Lord Wolfe's reforms, which sought to simplify litigation, which also had a knock-on effect on how contracts should be written, my drafting style has always been to make a contract easy to read and user-friendly. My counterpart was all about sticking to tradition. I got to review the contract first, and I redlined the long, stodgy language that was in the contract, some of which read, "Now therefore, in consideration of the premises and other good and valuable consideration, the receipt and sufficiency of which are hereby acknowledged, the parties hereto agree as follows." That's not simple language. So I replaced it with, "Now therefore, the parties agree as follows," which is much simpler. Well, eventually, the counterpart and I got to discussing the outstanding points, and he nearly had a fit when I tried to simplify the contract and remove the ye olde English language. We had a back and forth, and we had a phone call about the outstanding points, including my now therefore language. My counterpart was very rigid and not very open to my suggestions to simplify the contract. He didn't want to hear me when I told him that now therefore the parties agree as follows is perfectly acceptable. It became a battle of wills, and I told him, "We don't need to make it this old-fashioned," and he insisted that yes, we do. In the end, I gave up because it was not worth the effort, and the fight, given the original language and my proposed language, effectively had the same meaning. But I learned a very valuable lesson about picking my battles and when to put up a fight and when to let things go. Many lawyers that you work with, who will be your counterparts, may not think as critically as you do about what the provisions mean in practice, and more importantly, you may not always have the option to spend lots of time on this contract. Your objective is to get the best result for your client in the current circumstances. Time is not always on your side. That means you have to get the best provisions, and that means throwing some provisions overboard, the least important ones, and not fighting with your counterpart about them. This is all part and parcel of being a commercially savvy lawyer. If you have any questions about this, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn on the link down below. And thank you for listening. I'll see you next time.